Call the Board of Supervisors into session for our Monday evening, August 29th, 2022 board meeting. We'll start the meeting with public comments. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters of which are on the agenda. Please go to the podium, state your name and home address. Individuals wishing to comment on a public hearing will be given the opportunity during that respective hearing. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in chambers wishing to address the board? Seeing no one in chambers, do we have anyone on Zoom, Kevin?
We do not.
Okay. Move to proclamations. There are no proclamations for approval at this meeting. We'll go to the approval of the minutes of meeting of August 22nd, 2022.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of August 22nd, 2022 as presented. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. There are no consent items for this meeting. There are no procurement procedures. There are no public hearings for this meeting. There are no plats for approval. We'll go to the action items of the resolution approving authorizing the chairperson to sign the methamphetamine hotspot grant award.
Do we have any background? That was just a resolution.
It was in the amount of $7,000 that goes to the task force.
Were we presented with this previously?
We get it every year, I believe.
I think we get it every year. For some reason, the 7,000, I always thought it was more like 14,000, but I could be confusing.
That may be the JAG,
Yeah, probably confusing that as well.
just another grant for the methamphetamine.
Without background, I just didn't know if we were taking on responsibilities or obligations, or what. It's just.
Excuse me, Supervisor McDonough. This is Mary Hobble.
Hello.
Hello, this is resolution for the grant that had been written earlier, and now they are starting to receive the money. It's for the Drug Task Force for overtime that they put in for the meth grant. And there will be more money coming, but this is just the beginning, and they have to have supervisor approval to accept it.
Excellent. Thank you for being here to give us that background.
I believe this grant is on a new format. It's all on computer. So they have to have supervisor's approval on the grant. Once we approve it, then it moves that way.
Just absolutely great. The questions are answered. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
I will second that motion.
Have a motion and a second to approve the methamphetamine hotspot grant award. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have a resolution for the approval of the purchase of service swap contract for Community Solutions of Eastern Iowa. Ed, do you have the background on that? I believe it's $405,000. If I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. This is Ed Raber. I have a memo in your packet that outlines the process, and this is a 3-year program to support the hotline for $35,000 a year. And this has been reviewed and approved by the internal staff team, the county attorney, and our insurance carrier for the content of the contract.
This is something that I probably would, I'm obviously going to vote in favor of this, but the issue of the homelessness is growing. And when we look at our budgeting and the veterans amount that they do for general assistance, we just probably have more work to do with this area. In terms of, do we have the right numbers? Are we doing it as robustly as we want? this was, we did this, I think, because ECIA didn't know for sure what they wanted, right? What they needed for dollar amount. So even there's a homeless advisory committee meeting, I think this week, even tomorrow. I don't, do you have it on your calendar?
I do have it on my calendar. I plan to attend, but I can't pull it off the top of my
No,
head.
no,
when
no,
it
no,
is.
I can't do
But it is
Right,
coming
right,
up,
right.
right? Regular
So that
monthly
might be where
meeting.
we just want to listen. We might need to be more active partner. It is a growing problem. But I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of service agreement.
And I will second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of service swap contract for Community Solutions of Eastern Iowa, in the amount of 105,000. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries unanimous. Next, we have a resolution approval of the purchase of service swap contract for the rural community food pantry. And that was for 175,000. And that was for the leave the move to go into their new building to assist with that.
Part of the Supervisor Potoff, this is the contract. The sole activity in this is assisting them with the purchase price of a building in Dyersville, which they are planning to do next month.
I think this was one of 3, if not 4 food pantries that we assisted with.
We're working on a couple of issues in the contract with the Dubuque Food Pantry. We'll resolve those, but this just happened to be one that popped through as we're engaged with a dozen or so of these projects. This one happened to just be ready.
We did Epworth, and then we also had the labor harvest as well. Or
Yes, we've assisted several different groups.
yes.
Technically, these are the only 2 that are a food pantry, I believe. Right.
So
Yes.
my concern about this was more that, so the project detail, we have the price of the building that they're paying. If any of those terms change, do we want to know? Or are we going to use some discretion? Like, let's say they end up paying an extra $10,000 for the building. Our contribution is capped. Wondering.
I think what we would ask when conditions change, and inevitably there will be some changing conditions out there, we would ask for those to be documented back to us. Depending on what that is, the county's contribution toward this is capped at a certain amount. If in a situation where it would be somehow suddenly less than the amount that we had awarded, and there was going to be less paid out, we would just work with that client at the time and make sure that the Board of Supervisors was aware of that change. So
We do have a material change with the Clark University grant.
they
That professor is now at the University of Northern Iowa. And
Correct.
so the check would be written to the University of Northern Iowa, which, anyway, we can talk about that offline. That, in my mind, requires a complete new application because the awardee is not Clark University at all.
there'll be several projects that the board has awarded funds to that the contract will be to a different entity than the applicant. And that will just be something that we'll have to work through at the speed that you're comfortable with. One in which
That was a research one, wasn't it?
that particular one is a research one, but also another example is Travel Dubuque was awarded $5 million for a stadium. I do not think that Travel Dubuque is going to actually build that stadium. The ultimate contract for that project will be with another nonprofit entity. So there'll be several different situations where the awardee organization will have to provide some sort of written documentation for the county of their intention to release that or to have another entity take over that position and the other entity to in writing indicate that they're going to assume that responsibility. In the conversations I've had with the researcher formerly at Clark, now at UNI, both of those institutions have signed off on swapping that arrangement so that the researcher will continue to do that work. And the original organization that the award was made to has signed off on transferring that to the latter institution, UNI.
And I'm involved in that as well, and I would consider that a material change. So as we go through this, I would expect that if we were giving $75,000 to that, it would be to the named awardee, which in this case is the University of Northern Iowa. They have not completed any application with us, any financial, anything. It's material change. So anyway, we can talk about that. It's not here before us tonight, but I do think we want to be consistent in looking at best interest of what the original intent was, what's changed, and also how we're going to account for this with our own accounting. And so when those changes happen, I'd like to be made aware of them.
The actual contract before you tonight, one of the clauses is that if in section 12, the assignability clause, in the event that for some reason the awardee needs to either assign this to another group or something like that, then there's a process outlined in the contract for how that would happen. You don't have a contract with any of these groups yet, so they have not. You have not entered into that contract arrangement that requires how that sign off goes. So you have some flexibility in how you deal with that up until the time you actually enter into a contract. So I look forward to working with you on that. So I've been in contact with in that particular case with that awardee, and so we'll be working to bring that to you in the next couple of weeks.
As far as you know it, related to this contract and this agreement, the Rural Community Food Pantry, it is as it's presented.
Yes, Supervisor.
Thank you. I was good at that.
Looking for a motion for approval of the swap contract for Rural Community Food Pantry.
Make a motion to approve the Rural Community Food Pantry.
And I will second that.
Have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of service swap contract for Rural Community Food Pantry in the amount of $175,000. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. On to communications, we have no communication items for approval at this meeting. Open vacancies for information only. Personnel requisitions, we have a motion, looking for a motion to approve personnel requisition for a permanent full-time clerk cashier in the treasurer's office.
Question. This does not indicate the reason for
The employee transferred from the treasurer's office to the attorney's office.
So in the past, we've been kind of a stickler about that being filled out.
Right, we can reintroduce it at the next agenda with that information. Otherwise, I did confirm that Tracy has moved to the county attorney's office.
So the box transferred would be checked. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the personnel requisition with the modification of the box transferred in addition to what's presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the personnel requisition as amended to indicate the transferred. All in favor signify by aye.
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 Aye. Going to the last section of public comment. At this time, anyone may address the board on matters of which are of concern to that person and which are not agenda items. Please go to the podium, state your name and home address. Please be aware that the board is limited in their ability to respond to such inquiries, and Iowa Code prohibits the board from deliberating or acting on items not appearing on the agenda. Individual remarks are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in chambers wishing to address the board? Yes, sir. Come up and identify yourself.
Yes, I'm Carl Burkle, 14299 Christoph Road in Darsville. I am here representing 175 people that I have on this papers here for wanting things done on the road out here. I've been working with Anthony, the past engineer, on this for several years. Anthony's been real good. He put us a new bridge in here like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was hoping that would forward the new road, but it's not getting done. If you don't know where Christoph Road is, if you're familiar with the center of Darsville, the stoplight, you go straight north, and if you go out of town that way, there's about 1.5 miles of gravel road that joins Floyd Road. The traffic on this road is just terrible. I asked for a traffic count here like 1.5 years ago, and you did that, and there was like over 400 and some vehicles on this road that day, per day. Getting back, I was talking to Neil Gatto. He's the man in charge of maintenance on that road. I just talked to him last week, and he dumped 75 loads of gravel on this road already. Neil keeps telling me that something needs to be done with this road, but nothing ever gets done. In talking with Anthony in the past, he always says we need a concrete road out there, which would be rather pricey because of the truck traffic on that road. On one side of the road, there's a sand pit that I own that Bard has, and on the other side, Horsefield had a plant. Well, recently this has changed a lot as far as truck traffic is concerned, because Bard bought out Horsefield, and now he's kind of shutting that quarry down a little bit. And for what, and the material that he gets out of mine, he's going to pump over to Horsefield under the road that just gave him permission to put a culvert under. So the road, the usage of truck traffic on this road is decreasing by a lot. And I'm hoping maybe that you could get by with asphalt versus concrete, but that's obviously up to your engineer and whatever. So I'm hoping something can get done soon. All these people would sure are requesting that. I don't really know what else to say. I'm just here representing these people and the people that use that road. There's an industrial park on the north end of Darsville. A lot of them people use that road when they get out of work at 3:30 and 4:30. And they all come out this gravel road because there's a belt line that goes through Darsville. But the backup on line down there to get on 136 is so long that they come out and they fly out past my gravel road to get home there. So there's a lot of traffic on there. So I really don't know what else to say, except there's that 75 loads of gravel that's hauled on there at $200 a load. I mean, it's costing you over $14,000 a year just to maintain 1.5 miles. So I hope that you would take a look at this, put us down maybe for next year's budget, and see if you can't get something done out there. And I probably took more than 3 minutes, but anyway, I'd like to take 1 second and thank you for all the things you've done for the Field of Dreams. I'm a big supporter of that project, and it sounds like you are too, and I thank you for that.
Thanks for being here, Carl.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. And I think we have Russell's up here. Can we confirm that that's our county engineer? Is that Russell Weber?
Yes, it is.
So Mr. Burkle, Russell Weber, our new county engineer, heard your comments. So our county engineer is on Zoom, and so he heard your comments as well. Okay? Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. We can move to the work sessions unless somebody needs a break, which we weren't really in session too long.
I'm good.
Go to the work session with the Disabilities Council. Who was presenting on that?
By May Hinchin that this was going to be on the agenda? Did we notify May Hinchin from the region this was going to be on the agenda?
She does receive the agenda and she communicated with us last week that she had received the agenda. Above that, no, I didn't.
All right, my name is Indigo Channing and I am a member of the Dubuque County Disability Council. And just so I'm mindful of time, how long do you want me to keep this to? Hmm? I'm just asking so I can make sure I go through stuff quickly enough, so.
They would like to be done probably by 6 at the latest.
All right, so yeah, so this is this PowerPoint. It looks like it has more slides in it. I mean, it has a decent amount of slides, but it's mostly just screenshots of the actual survey so that we don't have to flip back and forth. So I'm prefacing this with that. And if you can go ahead and click to the next thing. And just a note for people who do not know what the Disabilities Council is. Our mission is to represent the perspective of people with disabilities to the Board of Supervisors and to actively seek change in policies and practices that create more inclusive opportunities and dismantle barriers for people with disabilities in Dubuque County. And the survey was one of our efforts for that. So the purpose of the survey was just to kind of see what was out there for needs, really, and what was out there as far as our population. Distribution of the survey was primarily done through email, as well as social media of the county, is my understanding, and service providers actually pushing it through their listservs. According to the Census Bureau, the estimated population of disabled under the age of 65 is about 7.3% of the population, which would be about 7,000 people in the county of Dubuque. And for the short amount of time we had the survey out, it was 144 participants, which is about 2% of the disabled population. So not a really big group of the population. Usually a survey you want about, I think, like 6 or 7%. So we would like to actually see if more input from people. And you can click to the next slide. So just a point on here, I just went through this point by question briefly. And the first question asked, if people completed the survey themselves or if they had somebody assist them with it. Of the responses we had, only 19 people needed assistance. And that's about 13%, I think. And that's not a lot. That leaves some of our most vulnerable people not actually providing input, which was a concern of the committee. We just want to make sure that, when we're getting these services out there, that it's actually helping the people who rely on them the most. And you can click to the next slide. We did go through and kind of got some basic demographic information as far as gender identity and gender identity. Around 51% of the population is female. We had just a little bit over that for respondents, which is actually not too bad. We were not expecting as many men to answer just because of kind of stigma surrounding men actually having disabilities or mental health stuff specifically, because we had a lot of respondents who identified as having mental health issues, which we'll get to. One of the things I want to note, as somebody who also does a lot of work with people in the LGBTQ community, people in the LGBTQ community do have a higher rate of actually having disabilities just because of like stigma surrounding it, discrimination, and just like the stressors. And so like I noticed that about, I think there were like 4 people or 5 people that were either gender nonconforming or transgender population in our county. We don't know. I know there's more than 5. Historically, people are left off of censuses to deny services to them. So I just want to make that a note. Anytime that we leave somebody out of the census in general, it makes it so that we can't give funds to them. So we don't really know what the need is for that. And ethnic identity. Looks like Dubuque County for the most part, predominantly white, Caucasian, but we did not have any respondents that were Indigenous, Pacific Islander, or Black, which was again a major concern of ours, because it shows like our networks are maybe not as good as they could be, and again, like stigma and comfort with actually identifying this stuff was not necessarily a thing. So it also is going to show like you know, it, in this case, that's, you know, in any case, it skews the data, so. Age range, this kind of shows the general age range. Have a pretty good variety. My only concern, and like the concern of the people on the disability community, is there was no respondents that were over the age of 75. And in this particular case, you know, people who are in nursing homes would be considered a member of the disabled community, or not, that's not the term we use anymore, but people in those sort of homes are like, you know, considered disabled, and we didn't have any input from them. So again, like, you know, accessibility of the survey itself was not necessarily the greatest. We did our best, but, you know, again, not showing everybody's needs here. And then disability status, we did not break it down like per person. However, there was a lot of co-occurring things for people. So this just shows kind of, I think it was about a little over 65% of the people actually did identify as a person with a disability. Some of them identified as people working with, as well as people with disabilities. So that's why stuff is actually a little over 100%. Again, we have, this shows co-occurring things that people could select. We were not expecting it to have such a high rate of response for people with mental health issues. And just a point of note that we did stick with mental health as even though the region uses the term brain health, we stuck with mental health just because that's kind of the more common term that people use, and actually a preference of several people in the community who identified that. So, so this is where I started to kind of break it down a little bit more. My identities make it difficult for me to access understanding services and supports. 82% of respondents either were neutral towards it or said that it always or usually happens, or so either sometimes, usually, or always said that their identity makes it difficult to access understanding services and supports. I feel like I belong in my community. 47% of people were either neutral, disagreed, or strongly disagreed. So just a little under half of people do not necessarily feel like they belong in the community, which is a pretty high rate, and shows just, again, like some concerning stuff for us. And we can click to the next one. I feel like Dubuque County is a friendly place that welcomes people with disabilities and community at large. Again, 54% of people were either neutral or disagreed with that, which keeps in line with the previous question, because if you don't belong, you don't necessarily feel welcomed. So most days I feel respected and valued. 40% of people said they were either neutral or disagreed. Having a purpose in life, 39% neutral or disagreed. One of the things, because we had such a high rate of mental health respondents, a huge factor in mental health recovery is actually having a support system and like connection to community. So this is a concerning number. I mostly control what happens to me in my life. 38% of people were either neutral or disagreed. And we'll address that as we kind of go on with this, just because I don't want to duplicate my answers. 36% of people either have only one good friend or no good friends. Again, just going back to that whole piece as far as connection and community. Transportation. There's a lot of people that identified that they use either friends or family's cars, or that they are isolated at home because they don't have transportation. Our question is, you know, for those with family or friends who are relying on transportation, what happens when people move, step back due to like maybe they're having some difficulty handling symptoms, or when family members die? I have a friend of mine that, you know, his grandma is his primary mode of transportation. When she passes on, like, he won't have transportation usually. Resources and opportunities within Dubuque County gives me everything I need to have a successful competitive employment experience or career. 74% were either neutral or disagreed with that. So again, like, this is just showing some concerning concerning thing, because what I would like to point out with this, when we're having people that are neutral or disagreed with these statements, these are people who are connected enough to have actually gotten the survey. So what are the numbers looking like without that? Successful educational experience, 58% of people were either neutral or disagreed. Again, like it just comes down to continuing education is difficult, it's expensive, it requires transportation, and it requires ability to actually have the resources and support you need. And this one I feel like is tied into a lot of the other stuff that we've touched on previously. So feeling the resources and opportunities give me everything I need to be a meaningful part of the community. 57% were either neutral or disagreed or strongly disagreed. So again, those are some pretty high numbers. We can disregard that little barriers piece that actually on the next slide, that was an error on my part. So describing the most important issues related to being a person with disability or knowing a person with a disability. Barriers people noted were transportation, resources and services, and stigma. So like if you go to the survey itself, there's like a whole bunch of in-depth answers that you can see on there. But those are kind of the underlying themes. And going into transportation briefly, example, like, you know, Dyersville, I have a friend that lives in Dyersville, and if she wants to come into town, like she has to use RTA, which means that she has to come in at like 7 o'clock in the morning and then leave at like, you know, at like, I think 4 p.m. or something like that. And it's like, you know, it costs like a certain amount each way. So there's really, you know, and it's like, there's really no control or autonomy in that. And especially when the service that she wants to come into town for doesn't open until 11 a.m. What is she doing during that time? So our rural people are, you know, even more affected. And then what resources or initiatives work well for people with disabilities in Dubuque County? There was a lot of people that were unsure of what was working or were not aware of all the resources available. And again, these are people who were plugged in enough to actually know, like, who were receiving resources, because that's how they got this survey. So what ideas do you have that can improve the quality of life for people with disabilities in Dubuque County? The common threads, just summarizing all the stuff that we saw: requests for more providers, funding for providers, educating the public so that stigma is not as much of an issue, because again, we had a lot of those people feeling isolated, transportation being a big need, and housing. Dubuque is beautiful, it is wonderful, it is historic, but if you have a disability that keeps you from using stairs, you are going to be hard pressed to find housing. And then this, you know, just kind of recapping a lot of people either being not satisfied with resources or unaware of the resources. And these are things that are by the ADA, like these are ADA required resources on this particular piece, and about 40 to 50% for most of them, either not satisfied or unaware. And then these were things that people identify as important within the disability community, and around 60% were either not satisfied. That one did not translate very well, I'm sorry, but either not satisfied or were unsure of the resources. So. And then how much does the availability of quality disability resources affect your ability to lead your life of your choice? We had a lot of people saying that they are very important to them. Like 50% of people said it was very important. 47% said it was very important to them. But throughout the survey, we've had, you know, time and time again, people saying that there weren't enough or they were unsure of resources. And, you know, I'm not going to go over this one because it just asked if there's anything else you wish to share with the Dubuque County Board of Supervisors that was not covered in the survey. Y'all have access to the survey. There was a lot of really good answers. But a lot of them were, again, like addressing those common themes for barriers and like needing to address those. So I guess, you know, where do we go from here and what do we do with this information? And at this time, I think.
Okay.
So,
Bill Stump, and I live in Dubuque. I'm a member of the Dubuque County Disabilities Council. I guess the two things that are standing out to me and would like to hear about tonight, if there's any assistance, is Indy mentioned, where do we go from here? Our council is a group of wonderful people who put a lot of work into this survey. Are we able to disseminate this survey? I know several entities around the state that would like to see it because they have difficult time getting a survey even completed. And we were able to do that. Yes, we would have liked to see more numbers, but the answers that we heard were very telling. And if you think about that, a lot of times, if there's a few people that are feeling that way, there's probably others too, because they certainly have their own networks. So that's my number one, is can we disseminate it and distribute it? The other piece is our council is really still in infancy, but we've really grown and would like to continue. I think I speak for most everybody on the council, but we need support and we need a leadership role. So hopefully the county will provide that for us, because we're kind of trying to figure out where to go from here. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I personally would hope that the Disability Council would keep moving forward. You have done great work. And like you said, there's a lot to be done yet. Personally, I think the survey could be released. I don't know if it was released to May yet at the Central Region.
And again, I did notice that the survey was actually posted on the public website for the county. So it actually already is up on the website,
Oh, okay.
which is publicly available. So that would be my thing, because that's where I pulled some of the stuff from. I also had it in the email, but if you go to the county board, our part on the website, it is on there.
Okay. Sorry, I guess I wasn't aware of that. Indy.
In terms of May Hinchin, the CEO for the region, she had sent us all an email recently. And a couple things she indicated in there was talking about the future of the council and did we have a chair or co-chair? We hadn't gotten to that point yet. So that's my point, that we need some leadership and somebody to give us some guidance. So I would hope either the region or the county would be able to provide that to us.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Jay, any comments?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here and thank you for gathering. And, you know, we have, I guess, the unique role of handling a lot of different things, from road and bridges to Sunnycrest to the sheriff. And I'm very pleased that we now have a disability council that's assembling and meeting. I am obviously, you know, disappointed that we no longer have our leadership in that role. So for me, it is you know, as a priority to get you back your leadership and a person that can be a point person within the county. And the survey is eye-opening. It's kind of sad and sobering when people, you know, say they don't feel belonged and don't feel that they, you know, belong to the community. And then when you look at that, the question is, do you have enough resources, where 75% say no. And so that's a signal to us that we can do better. And so I don't really know what the answer is, but I'll be with you on that journey.
So did you send the slides that you presented? Did you send the slides that you presented? Did you send those to the county? Could you send those to Ed Raber? Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. As to the barriers that you mentioned, so transportation is an issue that the region is also, they have hired a consulting firm. I think it's University of Iowa. Welcome you to be there. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I have, in my regional governing board capacity, I've asked that we do share this information with the University of Iowa so the work the region's doing should be seamless with what the Disabilities Council is doing.
Perfect. And I know, like, to clarify some of the stuff, and this goes into more, I don't have much experience with the county, obviously, as far as outside of the city of Dubuque. But, you know, like example, the Jewel has limited hours. It doesn't run on Sunday. So faith community is important for a lot of people. If you have a disability, you can't make it to church if you rely on the buses. And as well as the driver's license station and ID station does not have a bus that goes on there even on demand. And that's like a necessary thing for people. That was a service they discontinued some time ago.
Right, and I think there are several of you in the room that are on the TAG committee for RTA as well. So I think I value very much the work you've done is unique because it's to the folks that you are able to connect with through the disabilities community. So that's amazing. We are growing, hopefully right along with you. I see Margie sitting there with our issues with unemployment. That kind of hurts my heart. You had an application into us for ARPA funding that was very big, but would address and drill down into that area as well for what we're doing about employment issues. So I value the survey. I think it's informative and it will be helpful, and I will do my best to connect it to other resources like the region, like RTA, what we can do for economic development and job performance. All those things are important to me. And so I think you did a fantastic job in however, how many hours you invested in taking those survey results and creating this document that's easy to understand and that I think can be shared with value, because it's not, the minutia that's in the individual responses. I was a bit afraid you were going to be all of those individual comments. I don't know, there's how many, Margie? Hundreds, yes. How would we ever try to collect that data and present that with, the unifying themes? I think you've done that with the three, identifying the three barriers. So there's a great deal of work to do for the community. I don't think anyone's satisfied with this as being the result, but now we know something, so we can take, I think, better steps. Oh, excellent. Good, good. Well, I would hope that it's also individuals. I know, Bill, you are a parent and a service provider and an employer, but I do hope that they're getting that. That's what I was told they would be doing at some point, is also right. Right. So will you be sharing it with RTA as part of the TAG committee, or is that something?
And what we do to improve. Well, these answers are helpful by just hearing from the public of what their concerns are. So they're anxious to see it. I think the Developmental Disabilities Council would like to see it. And I know Disability Rights Iowa would like to see it. I happen to be on the board. And so I just wanted to make sure that was okay to disseminate that to those folks.
And also, I think, obviously to May and to the region, because the disabilities component also is part of the regional work. So, we need to be on task there as well. So is there anything that I can do to help you disseminate?
Works that you may have that you think, maybe you mentioned the TAG group, and I think anybody else that, in the community. I mean, I think of, Hillcrest. I think of mental health providers, anybody, because
The city of Dubuque?
the city, because we talk about barriers in terms of the ADA. So I just think far and wide.
I'd like to see your list of that, maybe when you meet again, to kind of go through that. And it's your information. That's how I view that. I certainly have heard, Ann Cameron Williams say that to you in meetings, that it needs to come here first, but it's your information to share. And don't think there's any, I don't have any reservation about you doing that.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Margie, everybody from Disabilities Council. Is there anything further?
When is your next meeting? Do you have a scheduled meeting?
Well, as I mentioned, we need some guidance because we don't have a leader at this point. So, you know, and Cameron Williams would be the person that would set that up and reserve the place. I think.
Together.
And put the agenda together, and that's my ask for where can the county now support us in that regard, whether it's the county or the region, because that's where that person was employed at. So
Standard meeting time is a second Tuesday.
Yeah.
Maybe we can offer a different work session to discuss the transition. I don't think we've discussed the transition related to the vacant position and how we can assist this group.
We could do that like next Monday, try to have a work session for a transition to get somebody into the leadership role.
Well, this is a work session today, and I think that, you know, May has interest, as do I, and we don't want you to feel like you're orphaned. So I think we'll find staff for you. And I do think that while the county role is open, it is the region's responsibility. You are not a county board, you are a county board operating inside the region. So I think we can help pull that together. Again, I don't think May knew this was intentionally on today. Let's follow up with her.
the right questions, you know, how are we organized? And so hopefully we can get that done. I appreciate that if we could.
But if I could
Can you
add,
can you help explain that what our board is then? Because I didn't realize that we were under the region. I thought we were more like the airport board or I thought we were a county board because we're appointed by you. So can you explain how that works? That it's under the region instead of under just the county?
It is a county board. We appoint the members to it.
your role is part of the region's work as well.
Right, we give information that facilitates the region, but the region doesn't have any governance over this board, do they?
That's correct.
And I would say from May's letter, I think she was assuming that there was a president or director, and we haven't done any of that because the decision was, let's get this information, let's drill it down, figure out what we need, and then go with what our goals are going to be and what our structure are going to be. So I, you use the term orphan. I feel even more orphan, not because we really were looking like, okay, this is going to be our taking off point. So not blaming anybody, it happened, but moving on, whoever our contact person with the county is going to be.
Yeah, I
It's
guess,
integral to any next steps.
yeah, I guess my request would be, just if we can get, because our next meeting should be on September 13th at 4:30. If we can get somebody from the county designated as a facilitator for that meeting so that we're in compliance. And able to actually set up and start, operate as we have been, because I think if we lose the traction that we've had, we have a real risk of so even if it's if you're able to, Ann, or whoever, just come in and we can maybe look at our next meeting establishing those chair and vice chair positions.
But it has to be posted.
The auditor's office actually has availability on the 13th, so I'll reach out I have some emails already. Bill and I have worked on some other projects. So at a minimum for September 13th, I will reach out and we can coordinate an agenda, get that published, and probably do it right here in this room if that's acceptable to everybody. So I'll take the lead on that September 13th meeting for you.
Know that you're
We need a
also,
goodwill as well.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate
you
that.
also are changing the region. Other counties are looking at this. I mean, there's significant ripple effect to the work that you do here. So what you do while it's county board, it does impact the region. Okay, so we also have another county employee who works for the region, but is a county employee in this office as well. So I think we're here giving the information and asking the right questions, but Winter,
That other county employee was region.
I've actually not met her. She's been here, I think, 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Oh, is that the second?
No, Shelley is the secretary. She's an administrative assistant, but we also have another county employee there. So I think May is gonna take that on. I think she just wasn't here today. And so I think you'll find that people are responsive. It's not going, when I was elected, this committee was just completely sidelined, completely. And I asked that it be reinvigorated, and Jody Jansen began that work. So, and with Ann, it's created, it's a unique blend as well to focus on disabilities, more data driven and more specifically to community members. So I'm very pleased and I'm appreciative.
Thanks for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Carl.
Since I'm here, I need to take a minute to thank this board for all the work that you have done with Sunnycrest. My youngest sister is a resident there. It's over the top about the care that she's receiving there. And the Burkle family cannot thank you guys enough for what you guys do for my sister. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you for those words. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Bill, Kyle, Margie.
Good to see you all.
Thanks, everybody. Next work session will be with the UCC. We have Larry Murphy here.
Indigo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Indigo.
Yeah.
I sit here. Does that work for everybody? Okay.
For me.
Best that you sit here. I have the best chance then of hearing you.
Well, and I am guilty of mumbling, so do not be afraid to point that out. I know that, first of all, thank you for time. I also know you've also got some other things coming. So very helpful though to listen to the input on the disabilities group, because it, as you all know, we're in transition with whole mental health system. And so anyway, it's you all should get credit for what you've done, support you have, and obviously trying to guide these folks through some of these changes. I think Megan's moving between one Zoom area to another, and so I think she's dropped off, so I may cover hers. And I'll try and be brief. What we do have up above is the table of contents from the legislative summary that you all received. And we can click on that and jump into other sections of the, if they have any questions. But real quickly, first of all, thank you for being part of the Urban County Coalition. And I was thinking 43 years ago, I was elected county supervisor up in Fayette County. And at that time, and it comes back to why it's good for you to be part of the Urban County Coalition. In 1978, there was 99 DHS offices in Iowa. Every county had a DHS office. They had their own, various services were funneled through those counties. Over that 43 years, been numerous consolidations since. And so the Urban County Coalition, part of the reason this was formed about 10 years ago, and again, thank your predecessors for joining and you all for being supportive. Part of the reason that was formed was that with the consolidations, more and more services were consolidated to the urban areas, even though the services were delivered not only to the urban areas, but also to those rural counties. So anyway, and I think, the reason the coalition is so important for you all is that, we've got Scott, Blackhawk, Lynn, Dubuque, and Johnson County. Is those are the major urban centers in eastern Iowa that provide services to the rural parts of the eastern Iowa, but also to some counties in the other part of the state. Iowa State Association of Counties, and we work with them on a regular basis, but because they represent all 99 counties, they're not allowed to take positions where there's a conflict between their members. And so any attempts to have you all get reimbursed or readjust the allocation of funds from the state to the urban centers, because that's where the work's being done, and storage of documents, all those types of things. They cannot take a position; they have to stay neutral, and so that allows us to actually advocate for you all. So again, I want to thank you for it. I'm going to jump over a couple things really quickly, and then certainly respond to questions, so we sort of keep you on schedule here. I think probably in the lobbying world, and you all are familiar with what we do, but in the lobbying world, sometimes you have what's called a defensive victory. Not that you passed something, but you either stopped something or got language out of a bill that was not good. And we had a major, defensive win this year on the Senate tax bill, which originated with, and again, you've all heard summaries of this, but for the folks that are listening here, the original Senate bill, in order to trigger the I Will or the Iowa Land Legacy constitutional amendment that was passed a number of years ago, the idea was to basically have the state, as part of this tax bill, scoop up all those local option sales taxes that were passed individually by counties and cities and schools, scoop those up, maintain for a while the expenditure statement that were used to pass those referendums, and then theoretically pay that money back. You've heard that story before. Pay back the money to the individual counties and cities and schools for those purposes until the expiration of whenever those expenditure statements took place. And it's not often that Farm Bureau and the Urban County Coalition work together. We were the only two entities that took a position against that Senate position. And luckily we were able to persuade the House to hold firm. They took that language out. And so, the major tax bill was passed, but the local option piece was saved for local entities to continue as is. I think we know that the chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate feels very strongly about that issue. So it will come back again. So we know that that's going to be an issue that we have to deal with this upcoming session. The other major issue for you all is the mental health funding. It just kind of dovetails nicely with the presentation just before, and some of that gray area in terms of what your local disability council, how they fit in with this regional system, that type of thing. And I think as you all know, Senate File 619 was passed last year, which was a rewrite of the mental health law that was passed in 2013 that created the regions in the first place. The piece of that that's important is, and it was a priority for the Urban County Coalition going into this session, was asking the state to keep its word, where Senate File 619 started this process of phasing out the mental health levy at the local level and theoretically replacing it with state money. They kept their word this year. I mean, there's a 5-year process of lowering the mental health levy, and hopefully the state continues to put their additional money back, in to make up for that shortfall from the levy. I think while it's important that happened, I think the real piece is going to be how the innovation fund and some of these other funds within that mental health region are, first of all, because if there's excess funds based on that formula each year from the counties or the regions, they have to forward that to the state. It's put into this innovation fund, be handed out as grants. But I think the bigger issue, and I think you saw it here with that survey, is that the assumption of the mental health bill that was passed, and this is not being critical of any legislators or any individuals, but the assumption was that we were adequately funding mental health services, which includes a disability as well as the traditional mental health populations. And I think as time goes on, that's going to be part of the advocacy we all have to, and kind of what you heard tonight, as you start seeing some of the gaps in the delivery at the local level, getting that information to the regions and also presenting that to legislators so that they realize that the job's not done on mental health. But right now, they're keeping the word, and that's probably the most important win from that last session. The other two bills I'll just touch on real quick is, and you all were in the middle of it, was the ATV, UTV regulations as to whether or not you're going to maintain your ordinances or not. I mean, for all practical purposes, there's a lot of kind of convoluted language, but for all practical purposes, the state pretty much deregulated ATVs and UTVs for city and county government. Again, you're allowed to do some things, but there's time elements, identifying what kind of roads you're going to do it on. And again, you're limited to what circumstance you can do that, as well as the time frame. So, and that's going to be one that's going to have to be revisited. Just paying attention to the news since the law went into effect, the number of serious injuries and fatalities statewide with these UTVs, on some of these county roads and city streets. That's actually, that was Gary. The, probably check. Yeah, and by the way, Gary, I think I explained to everybody that Gary is doing what legislators or lobbyists do. He's meeting with some pretty key legislators tonight because they're all the budget sub chairs for the House Appropriations Committee. So that's why he's also not here. So on that one, I think that's going to be just, we just have to keep documenting. And as more information comes up, if there's a way to move the state back a little bit on the decentralization or the deregulation of the, ATV and UTVs. I know this county had an interest in the home-based businesses. The bill did pass, and that was House File 2431. And it was probably a well-deserved rewrite of what used to be just kind of the regulations on baking and that type of thing that would be put out for resale. And so it was really expanded substantially. There's a lot of language in there. I think generally it's probably good in terms of in this day with so many entrepreneurs trying to start up business, their homes and neighborhoods, that sort of thing. And generally there's enough language to allow, primarily more primarily cities than counties, but allow the regulation of those businesses so that they're not adversely affecting property owners nearby, but also opening the door for some of that. So, and again, I can answer questions on that. So I think with that, I'll just stop. If there's any particular questions that you have either on those bills or other bills, I'd be glad to go into more detail.
Jay?
No specific questions, but just to compliment on the thoroughness of your document and all the various legislations. So it's all in one place and links work and very helpful for me to kind of get my bearings on some of these changes that have occurred. So thank you.
You're welcome. And yeah, you're right. It's a moving target.
I think, Larry, you've been helpful together with Gary and Megan throughout my term. Certainly, it's been invaluable to be working with you about the legislative component of our work and being aware and having opportunity to give input strategically to our legislative team that represents all of us in Des Moines. I think that it's very helpful. I constantly learn more connections. So you're also the firm that the region uses, which has been, so I work with you through that perspective as well. Maybe that's Gary, your firm. I'm never sure, what the identifying entity is, but that's been very helpful as well and able to lead on that issue. I am concerned about the sales tax. That worries me tremendously. Mr. Burkle, whom you heard here this evening talking about Christoph Road, that will be a mighty struggle for us if we lose the local option sales tax revenue. If that is the largest segment of our secondary roads budget. So it really is, and that was by voter referendum. So that's very concerning to me. But I'll give you just another connector that I think is so interesting that we're going to lose our airport, our commercial service to our airport on September 7th. And in speaking with Gary this last week about that, he indicated he also works with the Cedar Rapids Airport. So we had some discussion there about it's just interesting to know all the things that you are involved in and how the expertise can be potentially helpful to us. Not saying that you're going to be able to save commercial service for Dubuque County. That's been struck. That's the facts. But knowing that the work that you're doing broad reaching, some things were shared with me, just perspectives that I attempted to share with folks as well. So good. I appreciate all the interconnectedness that you provide, I think, for Dubuque County and Eastern Iowa. So.
And you on your presentation, like Jay said, it was very easy to navigate through everything. I appreciate your work on the local option sales tax thing. Obviously, it all goes to our roads.
Yep.
We can't afford to lose that. Hopefully, if it comes back up, we can.
And I would encourage and not to extend this conversation, but Gary and I and Megan are more than willing to come back for more detailed conversation, but I know that each of you have done a nice job of reaching out to local legislators or regional legislators on some of these issues. We need to continue to do that. And I think the other piece is your contractors that are getting the money for those roads, talking to them, excuse me, talking to them and letting them know so that they understand that if those local option sales tax are scooped up, there's really no guarantee down the road because, you know, the legislature cannot bind a legislature from 2 years out to specific action. And that was how we eventually lost the backfill on the industrial commercial property tax. So certainly as you want to do that side, but we're more than willing to work with you and try and equip you with some good information.
But when you say scoop up those dollars, they're not scooping them up to then report them or fund me. They're not sending them all back. They're going to share that. We will not get the full 1 cent back into our county budget.
Exactly, because I think 100% of your sales tax is roads, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah, so, you know, if you take the statewide collection, and then when they start allocating back, having 3/8 peeled out so that they can use that for the I will, and I mean, I think all of us support the I will piece, but scoop that out, you're right, then the allocation of the remaining 5/8 can't equal, you know, what you received before. How that would be handled and how they would do that, you know, there's promises, and that's what they are, of well, you know, they would make up any shortfalls with state money, but yes, so I think that's a critical part of that conversation. And again, I want to thank all three of you because you're all very good about reaching out to both Democrats and Republicans, which help us in Des Moines as we approach them about, you know, well, Dubuque County needs this, and yeah, I know we talked so-and-so, and you know, we heard about this type thing, so that helps us a lot. So a very symbiotic relationship, and thank you.
When are we meeting? Do we know when we're meeting? Are you going, Harley, to the legislative?
It's going down Johnson County.
Yes.
It's at Johnson. Gene just did another doodle poll to try and narrow it down
I see.
because we wound up with you know, out of the 5 counties, maybe, you know, 1 county might not have somebody available on that day. So we're trying to make it work. My hunch is it'll wind up being a Thursday or Friday. So
Right. And you're planning to attend then? It's going to be around your schedule, is that right?
Just make it work.
I'm gonna plan to attend as well, so
Pardon me?
I'll be planning on attending if my schedule allows as well.
You can attend too.
Well, it would form a hard quorum because it is discussion. So I don't think we both should be there. Because it really is, what do you think? I mean, that's been my experience in participating in the past.
but I think generally what we try to avoid, because is to have, you know, what you say, a hard quorum, so that you have some freedom of discussion about the issues. And so you know, and that's candidly, that's one of the tough things for you all with 3 members, because any 2 of you are a quorum. But so in the past, that's what generally been the goal, is to actually have like 1 representative from, you know, the 5 members, 5-member county boards. We can get 2 from those just to have some of the discussion. But like I said, we can come back in a work session then and follow up with those discussions, because we really appreciate your participation. So
And when you know when the date is, it would be good to have a work session before that, just to see if there's anything that
Right.
Supervisor Whitcomb
idea.
or myself would like to have you just kind of raise. I know my first year before COVID, when I attended in person, I was able to bring some things. We talked about water quantity, not just quality, and for flood, so
Yes.
things like that.
very good. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Larry.
You bet.
Larry, good to see you.
Always. Take care.
Greatly appreciate the update.
Are you going to your nephew's house for dinner, I hope?
Sorry.
Are you going to your nephew's house for dinner?
No, actually, I think.
There you go.
Supervisor McDonough suggested, yeah.
Or if you'd like.
He
to
said it
meet
was
me at
spaghetti
Texas
night,
Roadhouse.
pasta night tonight.
Thank you very
For
much.
wrestling for that. Yeah,
That is it for our work session.
take a recess, is that the easiest way, or what do we do?
You have
Quick 5-minute or less recess. 3 minutes.
Make a motion to recess for 5 minutes and then make a motion to recess for 5 minutes.
And I will second that.
Have a motion and a second to recess for 5 minutes. We return at 6:45. All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are in recess. Call the Board of Supervisors back into session. We are running a little behind. We'll move to our 6 p.m. closed session for the purpose of discussing strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent. Where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the governmental body in that litigation pursuant to Iowa Code Section 21.5 (1)(c).
So before we go into closed session, I think that we should have some discussion about the nature of the email that we've received. Because I think that there is some value to putting it on the record that we have received a note from a law firm in Minnesota representing Allie Newsom, who's made a $750,000 claim.
We do have Katie Graham on Zoom as well.
I understand. And I think it's important that the facts that are alleged, that the citizens in the county do have, I think, some interest in knowing that the facts alleged in the 10-page document are the facts that were brought forward through TH articles, newspaper interviews, Facebook posts. And so I think that there's something to be said that it's an extraordinary set of circumstances, but there's a general awareness that should also be noted. I also think it's important for us, perhaps in public, to also address that the county attorney is present in the room, CJ May, and whether it's appropriate that Mr. May be in this closed session or not. So I don't know how we're going to take that up as well. Some of this can be on the public record, in my opinion, and should be, so that citizens have an idea, what's occurring.
I would concur that the public would have a right to know about, the alleged or the receiving of the letter. Obviously, I think discussing the strategy in public is not advisable at this point.
Agree.
That's why we have Ms. Graham and CJ in the room to discuss that.
Yeah, I think talking about the specifics will only prejudice or disadvantage us.
So-
And we're here to represent Dubuque County as the government entity. And so to not take that responsibility to the full extreme, I think is putting the county in further financial jeopardy or hardship. So I'm not interested in necessarily talking about, not as necessarily trying to disadvantage us in any way. And so I think we should be in closed session for these further discussions.
And also, does that include whether or not Mr. May is present? Is that also something that we can take up? Because we have, if Mr. May agrees, we can move forward with separate counsel.
That's why.
It was
These are-
on
these
the
are-
conference call where Katie Graham is present on Zoom.
He is our county attorney. And he has the ability to, I would say, be involved or recuse himself. In my opinion, I don't write the state laws of Iowa. He is our county attorney today, 100%.
So I guess that's what I'm asking, CJ, if you're going to be recusing yourself from this so we can go forward with Katie Graham, or if we're going to be, if you're going to be present in these closed sessions for strategy discussions.
Well, let me just state for the record that I was contacted by two of you supervisors and asked to be here today, Ms. McDonough, so that's why I'm here specifically. I totally agree with Supervisor Wickham. I am the county attorney and I am the chief legal advisor of this county until I'm not. This particular matter is no claim being made against me. It is a claim made by a former employee against another employee, former employee of this county. That's what it involves. So we do have Ms. Graham available here to discuss her role, whatever that may come to be. or it may not, or doesn't come to be. But my role is to be here. I don't see my recusal per se at this time or any time into the future.
And I did attempt to reach out to you today as
Yes,
well. I
and
was
it was
notified
Typical
that
Monday.
you were not going to be in attendance. And you sent that email at 1 o'clock and I attempted to respond to you.
Well, I guess as long as we're talking about it, I came to know of the closed session by looking at the agenda. Nobody had told me anything about anything. So yes, I reached out to all of you asking you, geez, what was it about? Could somebody fill me in?
Right.
And I got filled in and was asked to be here.
And I just want you to know, for the purpose of our own personal relationship, whatever that is at this point, I also attempted to reach out
Yes,
to you.
you did
So
call and I wasn't available at the time. And
I understand you're the county attorney.
then I heard from the others and I knew what it was about. So
Okay, very good.
there you have it.
So I think we're all clear and we're on where we are with what's going to happen this evening, correct?
Yeah, I would also comment though, it's my term, it's been unusual that the supervisor would state all the things that you stated to begin with related to potential lawsuit. Normally we go right into closed session. So I was surprised, but it's on the record and each one of us as a elected official, I guess, has that ability to speak freely from this bench. But I would love to go into closed session so we could see how we can help Dubuque County and the citizens it serves. So I will make a motion to go into closed session.
Second,
You have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All in favor signify by aye.
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 All right, if everybody could please hold just a minute while I prepare Zoom.